For most of my life, I was like a stick of dynamite. Okay, I had all of this potential to blow up and do spectacular things, but I needed something to light that fuse. Okay, I needed a spark. I needed fire. I needed that fire within me. Some of you may know it as killer instinct. And, that's something that I just didn't have. And growing up, I always thought that killer instinct is something that you had to be born with. It's kind of like the whole alpha beta ideology. In that ideology, you don't become an alpha or a beta. You just are an alpha or a beta, and you make the most of your situation. You make the most of the tools that you were given, the mindset that you were given. And oddly enough, I found comfort in the idea that, I just didn't have it because it served as a coping mechanism. It allowed me to settle for mediocrity. And, because of that, for the longest time, I settled on the normal path. Get good grades, go to college, get a good job. But at a certain point, I realized that that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to do something not better, but something different. I'm dynamite. I'm here to blow up. I'm here to do crazy, spectacular things. And not everybody's going to like what I do. But that's where the killer instinct had to come in. That's where that fire had to come in. I had to learn to ignore what other people thought. And for an insecure kid like myself at the time, that was a very scary idea. I was very, very afraid of criticism. And I was petrified of the idea of failure. Okay, growing up, I shied away from competition whenever I could. Not because I didn't have what it took to win, but because the chance of failure meant much more to me than the chance of victory. Okay, I was afraid of losing. I was afraid of failure because I was afraid of the way other people would perceive my failures. That's where fear of failure truly stems from. It stems from your fear of other people's perceptions of you. Okay, I lived through other people's perceptions of me. I was a side character in my own life. But, eventually, through different circumstances that I had to deal with in my life, I learned to develop that killer instinct. Killer instinct is what separates the men from the boys, the women from the girls. It's what separates the great from the average. But what is it? Okay, in my experience, what I've learned is that killer instinct is motivation mixed with confidence. When you mix confidence and motivation together, you light a fire that cannot be extinguished. And then when you add discipline into the equation, which discipline is something that I always had, but even if you don't have discipline, confidence and motivation will likely allow you to develop discipline. You will become an unstoppable force. Because at that point, it's literally on you to create the life that you desire. Nobody can get in your way. Okay, you just set your intention with the universe and you take inspired action until you reach the desired destination and you keep going from there. Now, I want to explain to you guys how I developed this killer instinct. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys a few stories because I know you guys like stories. Okay, everyone likes stories. So, like I said, growing up, I did not have killer instinct. I was soft. I was a very soft and scared kid. I avoided confrontation. I avoided competition. But eventually, once I began to break away from that traditional mold, starting with me dropping out of college, I learned that if you want to achieve great things in life, you have to be willing to experience failure. You have to. There's no way around that. You can't be a very successful person if you don't experience failure along your journey. It's just the nature of life. I like to think of life as a ladder, okay? And you can climb each individual step if you want, but if you do that, you're never going to make it to the top. You don't have enough time in your life. If you want to make it to the top, you have to start skipping steps. You have to take that leap of faith and grab on to that step that may be just out of your reach, or at least you think it's out of your reach until you actually grab onto it. But when you do take that leap of faith, you're risking everything that you've worked for up to that point. In order to get everything that you want, you have to be willing to risk everything that you have. And that's what I learned throughout my journey. Now, like I said, I dropped out of school when I was about 19 years old. Okay, this is March 2019. Now, around this same time, I started my YouTube channel. Now, mind you, I had no intentions of being a YouTuber. This was just something that I wanted to do to, express myself, because at this time I was finding myself by dropping out of school and just taking the time to truly examine who I was and what I wanted out of life. But how did I reach this point? How did I develop this mindset, this stone cold mindset that I have right now? I developed it through adversity. Okay, adversity. I put myself in situations that forced me to grow, that forced me to expand to accommodate the life that I wanted. The Jordan from 2 years ago, March 2019, he would not have been able to handle the life that I'm living right now. He wouldn't have been able to handle the pressure of knowing that his words are impacting 60,000 people. Okay, he would have folded under that pressure. But me, I'm built for this. I'm literally built for this. My journey made me into a person who can handle anything that is thrown my way. Now, like I said, I had to develop this mindset through adversity. Okay, as I've said many times in the past, adversity breeds growth. Now, for me, okay, the time where I truly experienced adversity for the first time in my life was in March of 2020 when I quit my job at H&M. Now, I've talked about this many times before on this channel, but like I said earlier, I have a lot of new subscribers, so they might not have heard this story before. Basically, at the time, I was working at H&M. I was making pretty decent money, nothing compared to what I'm making now, but a lot more than I had ever made at any other job. I had multiple friends working with me. I got discounts on clothes. It was honestly a great job. And that's what bothered me, is that I felt a little too comfortable. Now, mind you, I wasn't just working at H&M, I was also doing YouTube on the side. I had around 500 to 600 subscribers, which for those of you who don't know, you need 1,000 subscribers to get monetized. So I wasn't really anywhere near making money on YouTube yet. But I knew that that's where I wanted to take things. I knew that I wanted YouTube to be my full-time gig, like it is right now. But at the same time, I subconsciously knew that I didn't have what it took to handle this type of lifestyle. I didn't have the discipline that it took. I didn't have the motivation that it took. I didn't have the confidence that it took. I was missing that killer instinct. I was missing that fire. Now, when I quit my job, okay, I put in my 2 weeks notice on March 9th, 2020. And before I could finish out the rest of my shifts, quarantine hit. Now, when quarantine hit, basically, I was unemployed at this point. I had around $600 to $700 left. And like I said, I had around 500 to 600 subscribers. The outlook was not very promising for me. Okay, it was not very promising at all. Now, mind you, had I stayed at H&M, had I not put in my 2 weeks notice, I would have still gotten paid. Okay, the people that continued working at H&M, even through quarantine, they were still getting paid. But me, I had just quit. So, I made like a couple more paychecks, but I wasn't getting paid in the same way that I would have. And I also did not get a stimulus check. Now, okay, because of that, I was under a lot of pressure. Okay, a lot of pressure, more pressure than I had ever experienced in my entire life. Now, those types of situations, that's where you really find out what you're made of. That's where you have to dig deep and you have to find that killer instinct. Because what I've realized throughout my YouTube journey is that everyone can develop killer instinct. Killer instinct is not something that you have to be born with. Some people are born with it, but anyone can develop it. Okay, I learned that through experience. I developed that killer instinct. I developed that confidence and that motivation because my back was against the wall. I had no other choice. It was sink or swim, and I chose to swim. Now, like I said, I could have kept working there, had the same amount of time off that I ended up having after I quit, and still gotten paid through that time. But I know in my heart that if I were getting paid during that time, I would not have been successful on YouTube because I would have been complacent. I would have been far too complacent with my situation. And complacency is the enemy of expansion. If you want to expand your platform or expand yourself and become bigger and better and do greater things in life, you have to be willing to subject yourself to pressure, high amounts of pressure. Okay, because if you don't, then even when you do get the life that you desire, you won't be able to handle it. You won't be in receiving mode. Now, in addition to me quitting my job, I want to give you guys some context as to why I quit my job. Okay, because this was where I truly found that spark. This was the spark that forced me to put myself into that high pressure situation. At the time, I was talking to a girl, and to say that I caught feelings for her would be quite an understatement, okay? And you can go back and watch my videos, and you can see just how down bad I was. But I'm not really gonna get too deep into that. The point is, this is a girl that I was very, very infatuated with. And I couldn't really figure out why, but I just knew that this was a girl that I wanted to build something with. This is a girl that I saw in my future. Now, one of the things that really drew me to her was that we had the same mentality about working. We both knew that we did not like our jobs that we were working. And this is where I realized that maybe we were a little bit more different than I thought we were. Okay, because even though we shared that same mentality, I asked her, before I quit my job, I asked her if I should quit my job at H&M. And she told me, ad verbatim, she told me, I think you should always have a job. I know you hate working, but you're going to hate being broke even more. And those words are still, to this day, as of June 2021, etched into my mind. Okay, this happened in March of 2020, over a year ago, and I still remember the exact text she sent me. I've deleted the message. I don't need to see the message anymore because it lives in my head rent-free. Okay, that right there, that moment where, she showed me that she didn't believe in me. Somebody that I truly cared about at the time did not believe in me. That is what ignited that fire. That was what lit the fuse and, allowed me to put myself into that high pressure situation and develop that motivation and that confidence. Now, obviously, me and that girl did not end up working out, and now I'm in a relationship with a girl who does believe in me. But, that right there, that moment where I truly felt like I was alone. I felt like the person that, I wanted to build with, the person that I was focusing all of my energy and attention on, showed me that they did not believe in my dreams in the way that I did. That was one of the most traumatic moments of my life. But at the same time, I'm glad that it happened because, like I said, that was the catalyst for all of my success. That moment. In the words of Michael Jordan, I took it personally. I took it extremely personally. And I think about that a lot. If me and that girl had worked out in the way that I envisioned in my head, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I had to make a decision between my career and her. She made that decision for me. Like I said, we didn't end up working out, and that was mostly because she ended up ghosting me, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise, but that only added fuel to the fire. That lit the fuse even more. And that forced me to expand even more because that was more adversity for me to deal with. That situation forced me to look within and find all of the trauma that I had and eliminate all self-limiting belief systems that I had within me. And that's what allowed me to magnetize abundance to me. That's what allowed me to develop that killer instinct, that confidence and that motivation to match the discipline that I already had. And I've been riding that wave ever since.